Hello, I'm Loren Sederstrom, and I'm the host of the All Around Grant Show, and my co-host is Larry Lanou. Thanks for helping me out, Larry. Today we've got a lot of ground to cover for you. First of all, we'll be talking about the Great Grand Tractor Parade, which is coming up Saturday, September 6th, so we want to remind all the people in their neighborhoods to get their floats ready, get their old cars or tractors, and come on down. The parade starts at noon, so we have a lineup at 10 o'clock. And plus, we'll get into that in a couple seconds here. Plus, we're going to be talking about a lot of things that are going around in Grant right now. We're going to be talking about the wedding barn. We're going to be talking about the school district, and they just renewed the superintendent's contract, and there's 3 or 4 very interesting articles in the White Bear Press. I want to point out some high points. Then, of course, we had a stormwater hearing, and with some of the pollution issues we have coming up, we're going to be talking about that. Then we're also going to be talking about the proposed ice arena. A woman from North Oaks wants to build an 82-foot wide by 320-foot ice arena for her 10 and 11-year-old children so they can play hockey. It's a commercial building, and they want it in an ag area. But anyway, so that's what we're going to be covering today, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of different topics. So one of the things, again, like I said, that we have the tractor parade coming up, and why don't we play the clip, control room, and then we'll talk on the other side. This is a past tractor parade, so you can see exactly what it is. From Costa's greenhouse, okay, and of course it's a little more elaborate that they put on. Now there is an old Minneapolis Molinar that the gentleman restored. Example, and you notice the pie plate in the front, that's the entry number. We even had a semi, and you can't see it terribly well, but they stacked it with hay bales and had people going in that. Ragtime Roadster, one of my neighbors, and that is a golf cart that's been converted to a little mini car, which is kind of fun. So you're seeing all kinds of different things here is the point I'm making. And there's Bill David in his beautifully restored 8N tractor, and he's got a flag, and looks like it might be a grain belt too. And here is the wagon from Lanou Stables, and there's that lovely combine in the background, as you notice. Here is a little 1959 TR3 Triumph, something that somebody wanted to ride in the parade. And here is another float. This is with the VFW Honor Guard. Now again, they don't have to be this elaborate. And you'll see as we go on, there are some other floats that, are simpler. There is a restored 4x4 from World War II, which was kind of a hit. Beautiful restoration job. There is one of the first Chemstone cement trucks, and this is a real pioneer. I have never seen anything like this. I don't know if you have either, Larry. It's very unusual. This has got to be about 3940. I mean, this has to be one of the first actual ready-mix trucks.
You'll probably see more of those Semstone trucks on the road today. They don't look like this one, but we all have to start somewhere.
Yeah, but I mean, this was a brand new concept to having a ready-mix on a truck back then. This was just like when first computers came out. Okay, here's just a picture of a lineup of some of the tractors and things that were there. Okay, now here is a picture. One of the things we do is we start at the Guest House and we go down the dirt road past Sawmill Golf Course, and we turn a corner, go by the narration station and also the judging station in front of the Grants Town Hall, which, by the way, was Wheelander School and was built in 1913, so it's 99 years old.
Don't confuse yourself with the float. That's just a replica of our float.
And then you'll see, the other thing I wanted to point out in this particular thing is how simple some of the floats are. Look at that Stonegate Farms, Stillwater, and they just have some kids riding it. It looks like a snowmobile trailer or garden trailer. So this is just for fun. It isn't knockout competition, Okay, there's a Segway. One year, Bill came on a Segway. When you think of 2 wheels, you always think of a bicycle, but this is a whole different sense. Kind of like a pogo stick on wheels without the bounce. Okay, and here is
Hedberg.
Hedberg's made a float, and they dressed it up a bit, and they're going to be doing that again this year, kind of one of our local businesses. And there's a couple tractors in the background, but I was pointing out in this, one of the kids brought his little mini bike, and again, it's fun for all, young, old. That's the idea anyway.
One of the few days they can get out right on the road, and the Washington County Sheriff's there, and he's not bothering them.
Now, here's another one. This is a gator, obviously, and this is from 2 years ago, but I included this. This is how simple as it can be. Again, we're encouraging citizen participation. This is the whole idea behind what we're trying to do, is bring the community together like we don't. The kids go to 2 different schools in Grant. The west half goes to Montemedi, the east half goes to Stillwater. So we're naturally segregated, and we don't get a chance to socialize. So, we're trying to bring them together in some form. Okay, here is a picture of some of the people eating. I think this is a 2010 parade. And you correct me on the numbers, Larry. We thought we were going to get 150, and how many people did we end up with?
Well, we bought food. We were hoping to get 100, and we bought food for 150, and we had to go back to the Gast House and get more. We fed nearly 300 people our first parade, and we doubled the second year.
Okay, here we are. And now actually we outgrew the town hall, so we have to do it at the Gast House. Again, here's another example of a neighborhood float. This is for the 4-H'ers, and they have a rich tradition in the city of Grant. 4-H'ers have been around. 4-H has been there for 50 years. Imagine that. I mean, that's a long time. And again, it's something that I certainly champion, helping young people develop citizenship, social responsibility, and it's so important, and that's why many people move out to Grant, so their children can experience this. It sure beats them hanging around the mall, I tell you that. They learn a little bit about life and even death sometime if their pet bunny rabbit dies,
4-H has been a great place to start our youth in participating in community events and giving back to the community. And as they grow up, raise their kids, they come back and they continue to be good citizens. We'd rather have 4-H painting our fences than sentence to serve.
Well, I had talked to a judge, and he said, he says, I can't remember that I've ever had a former 4-H kid in front of me. And I saw a statistic this week that 4-H'ers are 60% more likely to continue their education than kids that didn't participate in that. Oh, wait a minute, let me get back to that little pony. There we go. There's a little horse riding the float. He's kind of the cute. He walked in the Manitou Days parade, and he was quite the hit. Okay, the second year we had first year we had an aerial ladder truck. The fire department came out, and I gave them my camera, and they went up, and this is the shot they took, which was kind of striking. Okay. This is Ray Hostiger. I used to work with him. He was the AV at White Bear High, and he made this replica, this horseless carriage, from plans. And I thought that was kind of interesting. He drives it. Very nice man, I might add. This is a large cow, and I'm here to tell you that's no bull. There. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it is. So we would encourage citizens to participate. We line up at the Gast House, which starts at noon. We go down past the Wheelander School and back. Then we come back to a picnic. It should be a fun time for all.
Loren, I want to bring out that this year's Grand Marshal is going to be Bob and Diane Hagstrom, longtime residents of Grant. Bob has worked on the Gateway Trail. Diane's a master gardener. The type of people that our community has been built in, they've given back to their community, and that's what Grant is, to honor those that have given our community. Last year we gave out 3 $1,000 youth scholarships along with priority couriers. These recipients had to give half of their $1,000 back to a charity of their choice, and actually I talked to some of them after they were able to give their check to the charities that they've already been working with, and they're quite proud to be able to give back even more. So it shows that, youth are important in our community. And the last thing we want to remember about the Grant Restoration Project is that we're trying to honor our rich heritage. We are named after the city of Grant. That's why we've got an American flag behind us.
Ulysses S. Grant was, because there was already a city by the name of Greenfield, so they changed it to Grant to honor Ulysses S. Grant for winning the Civil War and becoming the president.
So it's really strong, patriotic parade. Bring your flag, bring your neighbor, bring your mom, brother, sister. Just come on out and have a good time.
Okay, now we're shifting gears, and
if I could, before we shift, Loren, and Dallas, maybe you can help us out here. I'd like to give a public service announcement out here. Recently, I had the opportunity to take my grandsons out golfing with us, and we've got 3 nice golf courses in the city of Grant. And everybody talks about the importance of making sure that nobody steps out in front when they're especially teeing up a ball. We have a picture here. I'd like to show you the importance of why you should also inform them, do not stand behind him. As you can see, we left the golf course a little bit early. We're in the car on the way to get a couple, 3, 4 stitches. He was a pretty tough little kid. He jumped right up. He said, hey, he said, I'm okay. He says, it was my fault. I stepped in front of there. But it's kind of a public service announcement, so
maybe you should have them wear their bike helmets when they go golfing with Grandpa.
I don't think we have to go quite that far, but it also says, hey, you can have a good time. He's still thinking if we can go out and finish those last 2 holes, he wouldn't mind.
Okay, now we're shifting gears. White Bear Press, they had a bunch of interesting articles. In the first one, we're going to talk from Moo to I Do, and I'll just synopsize it here. Delwood Weddings Barn hosted the first ceremony. It's booked 14 more. This farm was originally a farm, 360-acre farm owned by Medora and Irene Arcan. It was a Holstein farm. They had 360 acres. They have 47 left, and the man bought it. Some of the neighbors objected to the wedding barn, but failed to convince city leaders to stop it. Our wonderful Teflon Tommy, the mayor, because the neighbors objecting to it lived across the street in Hugo, he could care less. And now the conditional use permit granted Jordan does not allow live music, and the barn doors must be closed. When the disc jockey plays, he hopes to get that changed. It's kind of like the camel getting the nose under the tent. Once he gets his nose in, hang on, pal. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. Now if we could have control room play that first clip to kind of give you a picture of what we're talking about. There we are. There's a picture of the wedding barn. And
you can see it was nice rural agricultural land, and our comprehensive plan says to encourage agricultural uses. We changed our zoning to allow a event center to go in there, and we did it without proper notice to our citizens and surrounding communities. I think you're going to find out if you call our city office tomorrow. They've got a lot of requests for the Freedom of Information Act. I think our city is going to get
parking
sued over
lot?
this.
They took out the pasture. And I think Joni Mitchell had that song. Parking lot.
And tear down Paradise and, put in a parking lot.
And there's a beautiful old barn, the house, of course. Now,
coming up, I guess I want to, coming up, we're going to see the steps we added to the barn. And, folks, that step really, if you can see, is not handicap accessible. We're not concerned. It's just another venue to, get the music out of the barn.
And you're going to see, then they're going to see they're putting in a sewer system, which is over a couple acres. It's huge. And that's basically it. We just wanted to point that article out. Going back to the press again, there's a number of things going on. There's a levy coming up. And one of the problems that people should know about is last levy that's expiring was $569. Well, what they did is 2 years ago, or last year, they said the school board can levy, was it $300 or $330 without voter approval. Now this new state legislation this year says they're allowed to collect up to $724 per pupil without going to the voters. Now, they want to add $600 on top of that, making it $1,324 per student. Now, again, figures lie in liars' figures, because for the citizens of Grant and Matamidi, it's not going to be $1,324 because of the 34% open enrollment. Because open enrollment, the levy money doesn't come with them, but they're levying based on the number of students. So what that means for you as a taxpayer is it's now going to be $2,000 per student because you have to make up for the ones that don't pay that come in from another district.
1/3 of the students, Lauren, don't pay any tax in our school district as far as local property taxes. So you're right, the 1324, but I think the most important thing we got to keep in mind is if we vote no on the school district levy coming up, it is still a 25% increase to them because last year's, the current price we pay per student now is $569. So with there's $424 per student for every school district that's in the metropolitan area. Then you add the $300 non-voter approved, that brings a total of $724. Well, that's roughly $160 increase per student. If you vote no, we're increasing it if you vote no. But they want to add an additional $600 on top of that, which will more than double the existing per student cost. So, and then the first thing they say is if we do not give them the levy they're asking for, the first thing they want to cut is a before school and after school program for the students that
Need extra help.
need the extra help.
Remediation.
They didn't cut any principals. They didn't. They renewed the Mark Larson's, and we'll get into it a little bit.
And how much of a raise did they get the administrators? Was that 12%?
Well, I've heard somewhere in the administration they'd love to give a 12% raise, but they're very coy about how they're going to do this. They'll probably renew Mark Larson's contract that they said at the last price that they had last year. But you know what? 1 year into that contract, there's nothing to stop them from giving them a year raise. So.
Well, now that you're mentioning the contract being extended, here's the article in the press also. It says the contract was unanimously approved July 10th after the delay that forced. Well, what was interesting is they called an emergency meeting on the 7th, and they were talking about it. They said there's no citizen comment. They closed the meeting for 45 minutes. Everybody came back in and was packed. They said, then they announced, oh, we're going to renew the contract. Well, if that was to be voted on, that should have been done in an open meeting, so there's a violation of open meeting law, folks.
Not on that, Lauren, but if you looked at their agenda that night, there was nothing stating that they were going to reinstate and or talk about voting on it. It wasn't on the agenda to be voted on. It says that
board members asked the audience to leave while they discuss the superintendent's closed meetings. The agenda item was canceled, and they said, but at the meeting, and I have it on tape, they said they were going to approve his contract. Okay, so they basically did it behind closed doors. Then, of course, the school board chairman resigns, Donahoe. He's taking a job in Texas, so they put this McGraw.
I believe this is the second school board member that's done so. Folks, I think we should, get some regular people out there to apply for the school board positions. We've got 1/3 of our kids from out of district. I think somebody from out of district should come and apply for that position. At large.
The other thing that's very interesting in another article, Matamidi School Board notes. Okay. School water schools will continue to provide administration of Matamidi's food service program for the 2014-15 year. Matamidi will pay Stillwater nearly $95,000, a more than 2% increase. Okay, now if they only have 4 schools, why do they have to pay Stillwater $100,000 to run 4 lunch programs? Give me a break. I mean, the cooks don't probably make that. I mean, once again, they're spending money like drunk sailors.
And look at what end they're putting on. They're putting it on the administrative side. They're taking that $100,000 in there. And just recently they're in the news because some poor 9-year-old kid come up to get lunch and he didn't have his lunch money with him, so they took a.
Well, they have lunch accounts is what they do, And he didn't, the kids go through the line. If they don't have money in their lunch account, they take and dump the food out in front of the kid, in front of the rest of the kids. It was one of the 6 or 7 districts in the state, and I ran a bit on this, both on the Zick
Actually,
show.
I think Channel 5 News put it, and they mentioned Matamita as one of the schools. And folks, this is supposed to be our leading school in there. I mean, as they talk in that article, they're giving it to the administration side. They're not putting that $95,000 into the food program so the kids can eat. And, you know, students don't work very well on an empty stomach. You know, I think this is all geared for financial, and it always has been follow the money.
Well, that's kind of interesting. Now, Control Room's going to run the next clip. We have a clip where Bob Zick's talking at Matamita. It's a little bit long, so hey, bear with us on this.
Board, I am Bob Zick, member of the press with financial, property, and business interest in the Matamita School District. I want to start by admonishing this school board and saying shame on this board for holding meetings at 4 o'clock so the public can't be here to see what transpires at this level of government. I do want to say that after reviewing Monday night's meeting, and of course we played it on the show Inside Insight, cable channel 15, that there sure seems to be a violation of the open meeting law when the acting chair stated that the board decided to give the superintendent a 3-year contract. You know, I want to say that the superintendents of Minneapolis and St. Paul both receive $6 per student. Mark Larson receives $55,000 more than the governor a year and costs this school district $66 per student, 11 times the per student cost of St. Paul and Minneapolis. I told the citizens, or the board told the citizens that if they voted for the school bond, their taxes would only increase $46 per 100,000 value of home. Tax statements ended up being 2 to 3 times the amount promised. Told citizens that existing tax levies were $869 per student and new levy would increase to $1,200, a $330 increase. You did not inform them of the $330 board increase that would have raised per student costs from existing levies of $569 per student to $1,200 per student, a $630 per student year increase. Told citizens that Mark Larson, the superintendent, told citizens at the last board meeting after I spoke, told citizens you do not get involved in legislation. Yet Mark Larson testified against the health and safety of children, against legislation prohibiting schools built on dump sites. I ask you, was this the truth or was that a lie? He's also stated that the school district searched for safe land and could only find the Bel Air sanitation site. We have that on film when he was down at the legislature committee. Matamita comprehensive plan dated April 2010 stated that there was adequate and safe land on O.H. Anderson's site. Mark Larson, along with Mayor Tom Carr, threw out reporters and cameraman from backroom dealings while discussing to bring the Met Council sewer and water into the city of Grant against its comp plan.
Thank you, Bob.
Because you allow 31% open enrollment, I'm myself considering running for the school board.
There, he covered that pretty well.
I'd encourage Bob to run for the school board. He's actually fairly knowledgeable. He seems to follow it, and he could represent the 31 out-of-school district students, 31% out of district schools.
The next 2 clips we have are going to go to the question, the exact question of what he's talking about. We're giving you supporting evidence here. So this next clip will be Mark Larson as he's testifying down at the state legislature. Out of 334 or 35 superintendents, he testified against the bill 957 in the House, no school on a dump site. If a school is built in a former dump site, that exceeds residential
Toxins.
levels, then they have to notify them, and it would have been in the school newsletter. There's a parent's right to know. They have to notify air quality, pesticide, herbicide use, and also asbestos. So they would have just said, well, this school has been built in a former dump site, and we're talking about maybe 12 schools in the state of Minnesota. So control and play the clip of him
Mr. Chairman, I'm
testifying.
Mark Larson, I'm the superintendent of Monmouth Public Schools.
Actually, you
I want to speak a little bit about some of the issues that we go through before we build a school. For example, in our particular case, in Monmouth's case, we started out by looking at the land that we wanted to purchase, and that was started out by looking all over the area. And we started in 1950s to 1970s.
Yeah, there's what he's talking. He's only been here 2 years. What do you mean he looked in the 50s through 70s? Ironically, that farm of O.H. Anderson, I met the grandnephew of the man that owned it originally, and he sold them the whole 60-acre farm. They could have had 60 acres, but they sold it off for houses. Imagine that, you know.
But if you go back to Matamita's comprehensive plan, and that was in April of 2010, this was a month before they put it out and encouraged the seniors to go out and vote, and we all know it only passed by 22 votes. But that, when they put it in their comprehensive plan, it says O.H. Anderson's adequate, safe property there, and that they should be talking and merging that Wildwood Elementary onto the O.H. Anderson site. It was written there in a comprehensive plan. Folks voting for the school would have assumed they were going to put the new elementary on safe property at O.H. Anderson. And instead, Mark Larson says they searched all over for land, and that's the best they could find.
Let's play the next clip if we can, and pay attention to this. This is interesting.
Come up with things on this. One is that we don't deal with Duluth. The legislature is not our business. The legislature is not our business. The legislature is not our business. The construction companies we may work with, but it's not part of that. And the $17,000 is a relatively misleading number. It includes the bond. We're talking about levies and operating levies. The bond is completely different and unrelated.
Stand by what I said.
Okay. That's interesting. That's like saying your mortgage payment is not part of your household budget. That doesn't count. Well, ladies and gentlemen, try not paying your mortgage payment for a while and see what happens. You're going to learn how to spell a new word. It's called evicted or foreclosed upon. Okay? So if you look at the total budget of Matamidi School District, the budget for the bonding and the buildings and the levies is $56 million. You divide that out, it comes to $17,000 per student. You have to count paying for the buildings that the kids are in. That's not a free ride. It comes from the taxpayers. So them saying, oh, the bonding doesn't count. Well, yeah. Does your house payment count in your home budget? I think so. Because if you don't make the house payment, you're in the street.
Well, Loren, it's really simple. Go back to the school Matamita website, look at their administration, click on there, go down to business services, look at their audited statement. You will see their total expenditures, the number of students. It bears out a little over 17.5, and yet you will never see them use those figures when they talk about the cost per student, because the state only sends $6,000 for out-of-district kids. And so if you tell everybody that state only gives you $6,000, but it costs $17.5 to educate that kid, you'd probably ask, where's the rest of that money coming from? Well, folks, it's coming from the local taxpayers, and enough's enough.
Absolutely. Well, enough for that. We've kind of made a good, solid points on that. Now we're going to go to the stormwater hearing. Every city had to have a stormwater runoff hearing. And it was very interesting with Grant. They knew this was coming up, and I think Teflon Tommy didn't want the hearing at the meeting because it has public comment. He doesn't want public comment, so he came up with a lame excuse. Oh, we didn't give proper notice, so we have to have it another night, a Monday night at 7 o'clock, where he, assuming nobody would...
Actually, it was at 5 o'clock, but yes.
5 o'clock, when nobody would show up. He was planning on that, okay? Because he does not want to hear from the public. And so Phil Olson, our engineer, and he's a good guy, you know, he works for WSB, and he was there, and the clip's a little long, but we're going to explain some things on the other side of this, so if we could play the clip.
Education and outreach. Second is public participation and involvement. The third is illicit discharge detection and elimination. Fourth and fifth are combined with construction site runoff, stormwater runoff control for 4, and post-construction stormwater management for 5. And 6 is pollution prevention and good housekeeping for municipal operations. So a little more detail about MCM 1. That's the public education and outreach. So the city meets this requirement by providing articles to the city to include with the newsletter. So the city's newsletter contains articles regarding runoff, mowing next to ponds, how much, basically how to fertilize your lawn to avoid runoff issues, that type of thing. In conjunction, the city does partner with the watershed districts, and they also provide educational information to the public. So they're providing articles, they're providing events, that type of thing. We have 4 watershed districts in the city. Each of them do something a little bit different. So providing those educational opportunities for public education and outreach. The next is public participation and involvement. Again, watershed districts are heavily involved in this. The city does meet this requirement through their annual meeting, which is tonight. So we're meeting that requirement. In 2013, we also met that requirement through the roadside cleanup day. In 2014, we will not have that, but in 2013, that's...
Okay, that's the point. The GRP used to run the cleanup, and I could bring some pictures, we've showed that before, where we probably have 30, 40, 50 people filling 3 dumpsters. The city took it over, didn't want the GRP to do it, and 3 people showed up.
Yeah.
And so, and this was part of the storm requirement for the stormwater cleanup, to go and clean.
Actually, Loren, it's got a 20-year history that we've been cleaning up our streets, but Tom Carr didn't like the success of it. Look at your roads lately, see if they're any better now that the city's had it for the last 2 years. Last year they had it, no one showed up. This year he's canceled it altogether. And now we can't even claim that as part of our assessment. So instead they have to put articles in our newsletter about stormwater and fertilizer so that we can meet that requirement. And now Tom Carr won't put a notice of the youth scholarship for the citizens of, or the youth of Grant. So
We have to also remind the citizens out there that 4-H had a 50-year history of meeting in Wheelander School, and they removed all the banners and plaques and everything that 4-H had in there and effectively humiliated them, kicked them out. It just about decimated the 4-H program in
well, they did.
Grant.
They left the city of Grant, and if you look at, go out to your ball field today, go look in the parking lot, see that nice rock garden they put in there, the fence and the flowers. Nobody's taking care of it. We run our youth out. If you remember, the city council, rather than have our youth and then get them involved, they hired Sentence to Serve to come paint our fences in our town building. Folks, I'm sure a lot of the people got out on the Huber Law to come out and paint our fences, but I think we have a better chance keeping them out of our court system if we encourage them to get involved in 4-H.
I wonder if Jeff Huber's out in the Huber Law. That was a joke, folks. That's one of our councilmen.
Inside.
Okay, so that's kind of one of the things we wanted to point out. Teflon Tommy is kind of vendetta-driven, and he is just...
It's all about control. Follow the charter commissions. I don't know if we need a charter commission, he says, but if we're going to have it, I have to be in control. Folks, this is what all this is about.
And we'll be bringing more on the Charter Commission. We taped it. Unfortunately, we couldn't, they were doing some remodeling, so I had to bring a camera to tape it. And it takes a while to convert it to DVD so we can actually play it.
We're
But
getting
we will-
very close on finishing up the charter, and our next goal is to educate our citizens in what we put together.
And we're gonna get there. And one of the important things, it's initiative, referendum, and recall. We want some accountability. As you know, just recently, Tom Carr said, "Oh, we're just changing an N to a C." That means non-compliant to compliant. So now you can put supper clubs and bars and event
Ice
centers,
arenas.
ice arenas, in A1 and A2. That is large agricultural areas, like this wedding barn. Did they have to go with that to save the barn? I don't think so. They could have done something that was unobtrusive. They could have boarded horses. They could have had an art thing there. But now these poor people that live on the hill high above the barn, and by the way, though, this barn is 100 feet from the county road. The county road is the line between Grant and Hugo, and these poor Hugo residents are less than 100 feet. So you're talking they're less than 200 feet from the barn, and as you know, sound travels at a 45-degree angle up. If you want to, I was just talking to my neighbor the other day about this, and he says, my kids used to have a bonfire down out back of the barn, and what they didn't know, he says, me and my wife could sit on the deck, and we could hear everything they were saying, hearing all the conversations, and they were at a bonfire 200 or 300 feet away. And, of course, the kids were oblivious, and, of course, mom and dad could kind of keep up with what's going on. So that was kind of interesting. So that's kind of what's happening there. We have one more clip from this stormwater hearing. I didn't put that in the beginning of the clip, but Phil Olson said, well, these normally last 7 minutes. This hearing went 1 hour. There were that
Actually,
many.
an hour and a half.
Hour and a half. There were that many people that were concerned. So if we could play the next clip, control room.
Digging will be done in the area of the contamination deeper than 18 inches. And the fact of the matter is, with the Met Council coming into this area with sewer and water, that barrier most certainly has been broken. So two key areas of concern. The stormwater around the school, are we testing it? And the area of concern is we definitely, it appears, have broken the barrier, and now who knows what carnage comes from that. Thank you.
Lauren, I'd like to kind of address that. If you remember at that stormwater assessment, it was added that they said they had no illegal discharge from the city of Grant in stormwater, but that was corrected, and they had to list the discharge from the Matamidi School District, which now is going down to Lost Lake, and since then has become contaminated with mercury in the last year and a half since we've gone through installed sewer and water.
Because the sewer and water, they put the sewer and water on coarse
It's a granular
sand.
fill. It's 2 foot of sand, probably 6 feet wide. And
2
that's-
foot on top, so it's kind of like putting a pipeline right down to Lost Lake. They added a second sewer line. Also, we went down and looked at the culvert, the stormwater culvert that goes into Lake Washington, and we couldn't get some good pictures of it, but it was just brown sludge. It was just terrible looking. So there is some contamination
And
there.
keep in
Everybody's
mind-
got their head in the sand. They don't want to admit this. They're thinking, oh my God, what's our liability on this one?
Keep in mind, Lost Lake enters into White Bear Lake. So the contaminates come from NSP that were at Bel Air. Bel Air was an unregulated dump for 30 years. So all those contaminants, and the state said you cannot go through contaminated soils, and we have pictures where they've done exactly that. Now they've made themselves into Lost Lake. Lost Lake overflows into Birch Lake. The gentleman that lives on Lost Lake's been told he has to disclose his property because the lakeshore is contaminated.
By the way,
It'll all go to White Bear next.
They have 25 years of records of testing going back on Lost Lake. And this last year was the first year that mercury has shown up. Now, prior to 72, NSP dumped the oil from their transformers that contained PCBs and mercury. And as we've said before, the people with the dump, they ran over the containers with the front end loader because containers took space.
Barrels take up room, and so they brought the oils, and I don't know if you people are aware, but your larger transformers, most of them, all have to have the oil changed just like you do in your car, about every 4 to 5 years. So because Bel Air was unregulated, they brought those oils up to Bel Air Sanitation. And that's why the 6 hot spots along by the elementary, you're on the planning commission, and their explanation why they weren't in the spec was just ridiculous.
They didn't want to clutter the spec book, and the spec book, folks, was 2 inches thick, and they didn't want to put an extra page or two in there. I mean, there's been so many, in terms of lies and deception, that it's just beyond belief. The other interesting thing is, Right across the street from Bel Air Sanitation is a former 3M dump site. So there's so much hidden pollution out there, it's absolutely ridiculous. Kind of like that old saying, out of sight, out of mind. You put 2 foot of clay on top of something and plant some grass. And by the way, for years and years, they couldn't get grass to grow on that 70 acres that they had for athletic fields.
Wait, because the vapor comes up. That's why you put a vapor barrier underneath the school to keep the vapors out of the elementary school. I mean, folks, Mark Larson says, we search for the best piece of land. And was Bel Air Sanitation the safest place they could have? Probably the least safe between Matamidi or in the Matamidi School District. Probably the least safe place they could have taken.
Well, they wanted to empire build because they're the best in the state, or number 2, and they wanted a campus with all the schools. Oh,
in one location.
you know, and you know that's fine if people want
And
to.
Mark Larson, he was down there
He came
speaking
from
to the
Matamidi.
legislature, but keep in mind, he came down there with 334 school districts in the state of Minnesota, right? And he was the only school district in the state that said, we do not want to pass this bill. And he got the support of his legislator, Senator Chuck Wieger, to support him. That being said, A and B, in other words, you didn't have to notify those citizens if the toxins don't exceed it. So by admitting that he wanted to, kill this bill, he admits that there's 8 or 9 toxins that exceed residential levels.
You couldn't build a house on that property, but they built a school because, oh no, you can build it at industrial standards. Like I've said before, everybody wants their children to be bright, but most of them don't want them to glow in the dark.
They chose to build buildings over education, Lauren. Now they're kind of suffering the consequences of it. And folks, they're more interested in getting your money than your children's health.
Okay, now we're shifting gears once again. We're going to be talking about this ice arena, okay? And the clips we're going to be bringing, a woman from North Oaks, I forget what her name is.
Well, let's even, I can probably, if you look at the application said she lives 4105 Lexington Avenue, Arden Hills. Yet when she comes up, they say that she's from the city of North Oaks. And another gentleman says, well, although she may be from North Oaks, which is not what it said on the application, they said they're building a brand new home in Blaine.
Well, the other interesting thing is the background is she has a 10 and 11-year-old sons that are very interested in hockey, and they want to encourage them. They're on 2 teams. Well, that's nice. Now, remember, this is A1 agricultural land. And by ordinance, you can build a building on, if you have over 20 acres, you can build any size building you want. Now that's that's ag, ladies and gentlemen. You could do a cow barn, a pig barn, a sheep barn, a chicken barn, a hay barn. You could raise
Put a
ostriches.
winery.
It's agricultural.
Apple. I mean, we have apple orchards in our
apple
town.
orchards. That's agricultural. Now, what is agriculture about a hockey arena? And this isn't just a little. When you say hockey arena, everybody throws them up in their backyard. They got 4-foot-high baseboards around them. Well, this is an 82-foot wide, 320-foot long building, which is a commercial structure with multiple bathrooms, multiple locker rooms. It's going to be a state-of-the-art ice-making equipment.
Well,
By the way,
33
all these
parking
people.
places, you're going to have
Of course, we all know the 10 and
locker rooms.
11-year-olds drive a lot and they have a lot of cars, so that's probably appropriate, The interesting thing is the ice arenas all had to change out the refrigerant just recently, and that was an expensive trip. But we're talking this building is probably between $1 million and $2 million.
Oh, this will have air compressors. The neighbors are going to have to go around the clock. You're going to have to listen to those going.
So that's the background on this. And our wise Meyer Teflon Tom, he said, we're not going to give you a CUP because that runs with the land, so go ahead and build it.
Yeah, he said, withdraw your conditional use permit. But I think if you find out recently, the attorney says, Tom, you actually give wrong advice. You're going to have to tell them to come back in here now again, now that they've withdrawn it. So folks, stay tuned. When they come in for that conditional use permit again, it should be a public hearing.
3 or 4 more clips on this. So if Control Room, you could play the first clip, it would be great.
5 High Point Road, Delwood. I also own the 58 acres just south of this land. I heard you talk about the drainage, the runoff.
Sir, could you please direct all comments?
The drainage going to the south of the property. I need more explanation about that. The drainage that is there now it's an artificial drainage. Jerry used a backhoe and he dug into my property before I bought it, and he created an artificial runoff which goes south and to the west, and it floods Greenleaf, or however you want to pronounce it. It's a major problem. So if there's more drain off coming from a parking lot, winter thaw, other things, big rains, that's going to affect my property in a big way. I think this is a noble project, but I don't know that this is the right place for it.
That's the first neighbor that came up. They've already got
5 High Point
problems.
Road, Delwood?
They're already having problems, and it's going to get worse. So there were about 10 or 12 people that testified. with
Actually,
this.
Loren, when we talk about 10 and 12 people, go back to the history of our recent city council. 95% of the people that come up and spoke against putting a school on a dump site and they're concerned about health were completely ignored. When it came to the event center, everybody came up there to testify, 90% were against that. They've been ignored. Supper club, same thing. Now the ice arena. And Tom just plain does not listen.
He doesn't realize he's a mayor and not a king. So
I think the Burger King hat's getting a little tight.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, we have another one. We've had 4 clips on this, so we're going to play the next clip and we'll talk on the other side.
Our home, the back of it will overlook this project, and I guess I've coached hockey and played hockey in Montevideo for years, so I understand wanting to develop kids, but 4 locker rooms for 2 players, 3 bathrooms for 2 players, 25 parking spaces for 2 players. This will be commercial eventually. It may not be with the current owners, but once the use is changed, there's no going back. And so the next owner will most likely have to run it because there's no way else to support it, okay? This is a residential neighborhood. As the last gentleman said, we moved here as a result of homes in the country. And now we're going to put in a hockey rink that, again, has 4 locker rooms, 25 parking spaces, and 3 bathrooms for 2 kids. It's just hard to believe.
Yeah, it's a little bit fishy. And if something looks like caca, it smells like caca, it probably is caca.
I would agree with that.
So it's kind of interesting. And the next one we have coming up here is, again, I'm not showing you all the people. There was probably 10, 12 people. In this hearing, it must have went almost an hour.
Loren, you would have had more than that because this is the first time that the mayor reserved the first 2 rows for the developers and their consultants. You take the 5 people that sit at the city council, you take the 4 members on our staff, and then he started counting all the seats.
Because he said a fire marshal can only have 49 people in the room. He had a new police officer, not the usually Brianna that's usually there. They had a bigger guy, and he was counting heads, shoving people out the door.
If we're gonna have meetings, and they know that, they bring the Washington County Sheriff to prohibit you from coming in. If they know they're gonna have more people than our building will allow, it's time we put speakers outside. So the 20, 30 people that were outside that were not allowed to come in can be kept up on this.
Well, that's really nice. That works in the summer. But how about a January or February hearing? I don't think people are going to be standing around.
Because we could pipe them into the parking lot.
Yeah. So, okay, we have another one showing how Teflon Tommy doesn't like to hear anything he doesn't like to hear. So if we could play the next clip.
Once again, it kind of is kind of familiar with what happened with that school that got put on a dump site. 95% of the people that came up spoke against it, and yet we got a school on a dump site. I listened earlier to our city planner talking about the comprehensive plan and how this fits into our comprehensive plan. Well, I want to read something from our comprehensive plan, and it talks about the planning commission. It's a duty of the planning commission to study and make recommendations to the city council. Now-
Mr. Lanu, yeah,
Yep,
I've stated
I know,
it
this is how
several
you have
times
me throwing
tonight,
out-
and you
yep.
need to stick to topic, or you'll be
This
asked
is
to sit down.
exactly the topic, Tom. This talks about, and I'll go back, I asked you to read it one time, maybe perhaps you'd open up your code book.
Can you please comment on this particular
This
ice arena
This
or not?
particular ice arena shall go in front of a planning commission. It says in your zoning ordinance 24, review it. Our city planner and our attorney should be doing this. And if I'm not mistaken, the event center, which came and a lot of people spoke against that also from the neighboring areas, I believe our city's now getting Freedom of Information Acts requesting different information, because I think we're going to end up in court over that one too, because it hasn't gone to your planning commission. I don't know how
Larry,
many
this is the
tax
last
dollars-
time.
I'll be back.
There we go. He doesn't want to hear anything. That's why he got disbanded the planning commission, folks, because he didn't want to have to listen to anybody else. He's already given erroneous advice out. Well, you don't need a CUP, just build it. You know,
Lauren, if you would have attended that meeting, you'd see later in the evening, he used the Washington County Sheriff to throw 2 more residents out, myself included, because we simply asked him to open up his code book. It said, none of this has to go in front of your planning commission. I'll read you the out of the ordinance book. We'll read you from the comprehensive plan. Tom, once again, is about control. If you don't have a planning commission, I can call all the moves. That's why he told the people, withdraw your CUP, just build it. He says, we'll deal with it later. Folks, we're dealing with the school on a dump now.
well, not only that, he put, by changing that N to a C, he created 38 commercial properties within Grant. If you're in a county road and you have over 20 acres, you can build a supper club, an event center. Lord knows what else he's going to come up with.
What he's done is he's created a commercial zone. This ice arena is going to be just down the road from
The event center,
the
right next
event
door.
center. And if you listen to his last city council meeting before that, he wants to put in a city of Grant to build a fire station along with May Township there. And folks, let's be honest about it. Every fire station needs water. And this is nothing more than, Tom's doing the work for the Met Council. If he can get a fire station built, he will get City of Hugo to extend the Met Council sewer and water into both the City of Grant and the City of May Township. And by gosh, I don't know what he gets for that, if he gets a new shiny car or it's just more real estate to sell, but
Well, just like that supper club they're putting in Manning in 96. That supper club borders the Browns Creek watershed area. Okay, that's a very sensitive area. It's a trout stream that they brought back that actually hold trout, one of the few trout streams around. And it started out with, oh, I just want a little bar to support my softball thing, my hockey, and my volleyball. Well, they give him a letter of intent, and then he comes back with a 5,000 square foot nightclub, a 5,000 square foot banquet center separated by an atrium, and they're going to have parking for 100 cars. Now, let's see, there are 5 people going to ride in each car, right?
yeah.
And so what's going to happen, there's no way that Browns Creek, I doubt seriously, let's put it that way, that they're going to allow him to put a septic system in for 500 people. Now that, we're talking acres. We're not talking a little bit. That would have to be like for a small town, for Pete's sakes. And it's right next to a sensitive area. Of course, there is water and sewer across the street at that particular junction.
Lauren, I'd like to, paint a little different picture here. I know you're on the right track here. Look at the 3 places Tom Carr has brought sewer and water. He's brought it in on 12 coming out of Matamidi. Now this supper club is right on the junction of 96 and Manning, so bring it in from the east, coming from Stillwater. And of course, when he talks about the fire hall, he'll bring it in from the north, coming from that direction. And we already know Lake Elmo is poised to bring it in from the west. Tom Carr's going to complete the circle if we aren't careful.
Oh, he's going that way. Okay, we have another clip, and this is a little longer one, but it's very interesting. It sums up exactly what happened at the meeting. So if control room could play that.
Sound bitchy, but, so, go through all this, all the neighbors are riled up. It doesn't fit a use that we have. So she can pull this back and then go ahead and build it anyway? Am I wrong about that?
It's because it's not for commercial use. And so that's the
But
difference.
What about with your locker, I've
Yeah.
been in hockey for a long time. So what do you need locker rooms for? This is what's part of it's confusing, because I know hockey. You do not need locker rooms, you do not need extra bathrooms. You have two boys, my daughter played boys hockey. She was in the locker room with the boys until Bantams, through Bantams. So what's with the extra girl bathrooms, the extra locker rooms? This all smells fishy. And so now we've gone through all of this, you decide to take it back, and so how would we stop you from going ahead and doing it anyway?
Well, and just to Tina's, which is a good point, and I was gonna actually follow through here, but if you do, what I said and what I talked about as far as the building size is true. That's true. You can have a private, you can pave, you can flood your pole barn to your heart's content, right? I'm not sure on ice equipment, if that falls into some, you have special equipment, do they need a special permit for that? I don't know, guys, I'm asking, like,
There wouldn't be.
You're not gonna have
Nothing. The
no chillers in the
Zamboni-
floor?
Yes, but the Zamboni is an electric Zamboni.
Okay.
And the
Right.
system that we would put
Right.
in is the newest system, better than any ice arena that is in
Right.
this location, so.
But the thing is, you can build a building, you can have a rink. What Tina's addressing is the part that I don't think anybody here said, okay, what we said, personally, I don't necessarily, I know what she's saying. I don't care, though. If you, seriously, people can do what they want. If that is what you think you need, I don't think we can say you can't build locker rooms and bathrooms. I don't think, subject to the building code, okay? But the problem is if you decide, and I'm gonna address the staff again, if this does turn into what it's, what you're saying it's not going to,
Yep.
okay? There is no CUP that runs with the land, so we've eliminated that. Now, that's gone, so you don't have a permit to do that.
Yep.
And then we will be,
Yep, I absolutely understand that.
a lot of traffic, noise, so I would turn to before you withdraw your CUP, so we're clear.
Isn't that great? He says, I don't know if this works or fits or not. Folks, that's why I asked them if they'd pick up their code book and review it. Not one of them has a code
Well,
book.
the
They
whole
should have been in
point-
front of the planning
The
commission.
whole point they're
My point.
missing is this is a commercial building in an agricultural area. You put ag buildings, and he's comparing this to, to a horse arena. They're not the same thing. Hockey is commercial.
State-of-art ice arena is gonna.
Is
it's
not
gonna-
ag.
It's gonna require a lot of people to support that. Even if they completely fund it themselves, these kids are not gonna you're not gonna put out an ice arena for 2 people.
Just isn't going to happen. Okay, we're going to get going here. We want to thank you for joining us. Next month, we're going to have some interesting things. We're going to
Before we
be
do that, I'd like to really encourage you to get out, start building your float for this GRP parade. We want you. We need you. We encourage public participation.
And join us for the next show when we'll be bringing some new topics and new information out. So thank you for joining us, and let's see what we can find in All Around Grant.